Hello, welcome to the True Paranormal. I never know when I've started live streaming on here, but yeah, welcome. And I just wanted to start off today's live stream by addressing the Jamaica Inn article that I published today. So I've been contacted by, I believe they said they were the Jamaica Inn historian, or at least I think they're someone to do with the paranormal investigation team there. And they have informed me that apparently there are historical inaccuracies regarding that article. Uh, all they've said in the comment, they commented on the post in one of the groups on Facebook and said that some history, etc., is incorrect. So they've asked if they want the article update. They've asked if I want the article updating. So obviously I've replied to them by saying that they can contact me through email and they can email me any inaccuracies with the article or anything that should be added to the article, and then I will add that on. So just so you all know, because I'm aware that quite a few people have already read the article, ideally I would get this adjusted as soon as possible before many more people read the article, because I don't want them reading incorrect information and then taking that as fact. Having looked through the notes, I mean, as said at the end in the My Thoughts section, it does say that I haven't managed to find much specific about Jamaica Inn, and you can look in the sources. I've looked through about 60 to 70-ish, I think, sources. And obviously the top kind of 70 Googled searches, as it were, won't tell you everything about the location. And the deeper you go, the more dodgy the information can kind of become. But there's not a great deal. I've used their own website a number of times as sources and various newspaper articles, etc. So I don't know what it is that's wrong with the article, but when they email me any inaccuracies, I'll adjust the article and I'll do a post on Facebook letting you all know. And I will probably, in the article, the way I'll adjust it is similar to, I believe it was Alpen Manor, when I had to adjust that one, where I'll put a little edit in just before the history, and then I will, at the end of the history, probably put a paragraph, depending on how much it is. Either I'll put it in the edit at the start saying these are the inaccuracies, or I'll put it at the end of the history, because one thing I want to do, as well as documenting the historical accuracies, etc., is any inaccuracies which are rumoured about locations, etc. Which is why you'll always see in articles, if I find conflicting dates, I won't pick a date and only say one. I will say, I found this one, this is the common one that's said, however, I've also found this one could exist for these reasons. Because I want to try and be as accurate as possible. So it's quite sad to hear that the Jamaica Inn article has got some inaccuracies, but it's expected with these things. And I hope that I can amend that soon. Hopefully, I'll get it sorted before Friday. My hope is that they'll email me about it later on tonight, and then I can amend the article tomorrow before the next article is out on Friday, which is going to be about the Fox sisters, which I have not finished the note taking for yet, so it might be late on Friday, could be Saturday, I don't know, but I've read through one source, made detailed notes. It seemed like a detailed source. Doesn't seem like there's too much to it. So hopefully that'll be out on Friday. And hopefully Jamaica Inn will be amended before then too. So, on to today's topic. Also, before I do actually, just to mention, this is the first time that a location has reached out to me and said about inaccuracies, which I'm very, very happy about that they've reached out to me for it. Because of a couple of reasons. One, it means that the database is getting noticed by certain people, but also it means that I have the chance to actually amend it and be like, no, this has been reported, this is the actual history that I've been told. Although I will get the person who's contacted me to find other sources aside from themselves which back up the claims that they make, because obviously you can't just have one source saying something and you can't just take that one source as fact. You need a source backing up the source. which is why I look through so many sources, and why if there is only like one source saying something, I do tend to try and remember that it's only one source that said it, and then I can be like, look, only one source has said this. It's not particularly credible because of this. So on to today's live discussion, which is a lengthy one. This was technically 12 pages, 11 and a half pages worth of notes. And this was The Jinn, which is an article I've been meaning to write since at least Christmas last year, because I remember sitting at the table with my girlfriend's mum, and she told me that she'd been reading into The Jinn, and then I was like, oh yeah, I have to do an article on those at one point. So I've been intending on writing this article for a year. I've written it down in my little notebook so many times to, have scheduled it in, but sadly I've not gotten around to it because it is a lengthy article as expected. So I don't quite know how this one's gonna, how it's going to be if you're listening to this, because obviously as an article I can jump about the notes all over the place. This is very much so just reading through sources as such, and when I reach new information I jotted it down. So it might not read in the most linear sense, because I do a lot of rearranging, etc. when writing the articles. So I'll actually start off firstly with this separate page that I wrote out, which I titled The Jinn Story, because I wasn't sure with this article how many stories I'd come across. And there were a few stories, but they seemed more mythical and more like legends as opposed to actual experiences people have had. But there were a couple of actual experiences, namely two in particular. So a girl claimed that a bully, and I believe that this happened in Bala in Oman, and a girl claimed a bully at her school nearly choked her and her tongue swelled up after breaking another student's necklace. The student began speaking in a male voice and claimed to be a jinn who had travelled from afar, and later the parents revealed that the jewellery was bought from a shaman and to specifically hold in the malevolent spirit. And someone called Muhammad al-Hinai, I will at this point apologise for if I do butcher any names that I pronounce or any particular words. But Muhammad, who is a devout Muslim postgraduate, reported seeing a pale woman in rags and hearing her cackle. Again, this one definitely was in Bala. Because I believe that this whole article that I'd found was specifically about that location, and that they very much so believe in the jinn there, and that they are kind of plagued by the jinn. And another local claimed that their sibling displayed personality changes after encountering a spirit. Their brother would some nights be found muttering against a wall and muttered unintelligible words. So it's similar to the claims of people speaking in foreign languages, etc., when allegedly possessed. And someone called Harib al-Shakali, who is a local exorcist to that area, claims to have treated over 5,000 people, and says that the jinn want to split us apart, and refers to it as the burden of Bala. So that's all very interesting to have read, and it's Middle East that we're talking about with this, by the way. And it's always interesting to find these stories of possessions and exorcisms, and this priest claimed that he's treated 5,000 people with this kind of affliction. And so for myself, living in England, it's always interesting to hear these stories, because it's not commonly discussed, or at least that angle isn't commonly discussed in the UK. So it's always interesting to find out, oh, okay, so this stuff does happen. People, like, exorcisms do happen, and people do claim to be possessed. But of course it's important to mention that it could just be a different way of interpreting. So in the UK there's a lot of focus on mental health, whereas in the Middle East there may not be. And they may be more religiously inclined there. So instead of going, oh, you've just got depression, or you've got something else, like bipolar, PTSD, schizophrenia, something like that, instead of giving a medical diagnosis, they could very well instead go down the route of, oh no, you're actually just possessed. You're speaking in a different voice. You are speaking as a different person. You are possessed by a different person. And they'll take it more literally rather than the metaphors often discussed in Western society around that. At least that's what my thought is on that anyway. So, to actually get into the article itself, as I won't read from the specific article, although I probably should, and I may do that in the future if I can get another device to actually read out the article. I may very well do that. But according to Arabian mythology, they are called Jinni, so spelt with an I on the end. And they're a spirit inhabiting the earth but unseen by humans, and they're capable of assuming various forms and exercising extraordinary powers. And the belief in the jinn is common in pre-Islamic Arabia and sought to inspire poets and soothsayers, and their existence is affirmed in the Quran. They're conceptualized in Islam as creatures parallel to human beings, capable of choosing between good and evil, and so must face eventual salvation or damnation. And they're beings of smokeless flame by nature, in the same manner that humans are said to be made of earth. And more specifically, humans are said to be made of clay. They cannot be seen by humans, and they're especially known through the association with the unseen. They are also favourite figures in North African, Egyptian, Syrian, Persian, and Turkish folklore. They're also at the centre of popular culture, notably appearing in The 1001 Nights, also referred to as 1001 Nights, I think. And I believe also the Arabian Nights story is possibly within that book. It's where the Aladdin's lamp story originated from. They entered local Muslim imagination in India and Indonesia via the Quranic descriptions and Arabic literature. And in common folklore, they're capable of assuming human or animal form and are said to dwell in all conceivable inanimate objects, such as trees, stones, and ruins, and underneath the earth, in the air, and in fire. They possess bodily needs of humans and can be killed, but are free from physical restraints. They delight in punishing humans for any harm done to them, whether intentional or unintentional. They're said to be responsible for many diseases and all kinds of accidents, and human beings that know the proper magical procedure can exploit the jinn to their advantage. As I'm just going to probably just read out these bullet points, kind of point by point. So I don't know how well it's going to read. It may jump about a bit, but we will see how it goes. The ghoul are one particular type of jinn, which I will discuss a bit more later on. And they're a treacherous spirit of changing shape, also known as ghouls. Then you've got the infrit, again, I will discuss all these types later, which are diabolical evil spirits. And you've got the, I don't know how you pronounce this, Scylla, I'm not sure, it's spelled S-I, sometimes with an apostrophe, L-A. But they're treacherous spirits of invariable form. They all constitute classes of jinn. And their existence is not subject to the laws of time or space. They do not primarily operate within the human realm, and they can have families as well, which I found quite a funny detail in a way to discover, because of a TV program called Rings of Power based on Lord of the Rings. And in that program, the orcs, which are one particular creature, were shown to have families, and it caused quite a bit of uproar about, how can these seemingly vicious beings have families, etc. And then I researched the jinn and found out, funnily enough, they also have families, because the jinn are commonly referred to as a demonic spirit. So I found the parallel quite funny. I've also found that jinn comes from Arabic, meaning demons or spirits, or hidden from sight. There are a couple of different interpretations of and ways that the word jinn has been derived, apparently. I do go over this a little bit in the article by saying, look, I found it means this, or this, and it's derived from this and this, and there's quite a bit, so I'm pretty sure that something I'm reading out here will be incorrect. But the word genie is often used specifically for a jinn who is enslaved to do the bidding of a human. So again, it's the Aladdin's lamp story regarding genies. The precise origin of the belief is unknown. It is an Islamic belief, and it is an Islamic belief that the origin of the jinn predates humans. They've always existed. Before Islam, people believed jinn to be spirits who controlled the weather and made fields fertile. And the jinn were also treated with admiration and fear. So it's kind of like the pagan gods in a way, where it'd be a lot of stuff to do with the weather and harvests, and just they were imagined beings to keep your daily life going, as it were. So that's how the people before Islam viewed the jinn. And the Prophet Muhammad, who was the founder of Islam in the 7th century, so the 600s, asserted his own belief that the jinn existed as spirits of free will. And it's asserted by some scholars that the Islamic belief system took a variety of local beliefs in demons and spirits and then transformed them into the Quranic definition of the jinn. Humans were considered as superior to the jinn, and jinn can see and influence humans. Now, the reason why humans are considered superior, again, it's going to be a point mentioned later in a bit more detail, but it's to do with the fact that the devil, Satan, Lucifer, however you want to refer to him as, was requested to bow before humans, and it's thought that he was a jinn. So for the jinn bowing before humans implies that humans are superior to them. At least that's one interpretation. I suppose another interpretation could be if you bow to someone, you don't necessarily view them as superior, but you can view them as an equal. You're kind of just you're acknowledging their existence and giving them a degree of respect is another way of interpreting it. So the Quran depicts the jinn as neither good or evil, but can choose their actions. Traditionally, the jinn are depicted as demonic, possessing or influencing humans to do their will, and wreaking revenge on humans who trespass on jinn territory. They're credited with acts of creativity, such as the construction of the pyramids and Solomon's temple. In short, the jinn are kind of viewed as an early civilization that predates humans, which is a very interesting way of looking at it, especially when you think about the construction of the pyramids in with that. So I can assume a lot of conspiracy theories probably exist or will exist when people start looking into the jinn, because there's opportunity for it. So in Islam, the story of mankind begins with the devil, later known as Iblis, when he refuses to bow towards Adam. And the devil is then expelled from heavens as a punishment and begins his war against God and man. He later tricks Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, catalysing their own fall from paradise. Iblis is thought to be a jinn. Not all jinn are considered as devils. Just so you know as well, whenever I say Iblis, it will be referring to the devil or Lucifer or Satan, however you want to refer to him, the big bad of hell, you know. In Islam, regarding the jinn, it is Iblis. Again, I think he does go by a couple of different names, but Iblis is the common one I've found people refer to him as. So not all jinn are considered as devils. In Islamic tradition, many have served as friends and helpers of mankind, although interaction between the two is discouraged. And they are often depicted as frightful beings. The jinn occupy a shadow world, which is a parallel world to ours, known as El Gaib or El Gaib. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but it is translated as the unseen. And this world is shared with humans, but also transcends time and space. Some have the ability to influence human action, although through research, it seems like all kind of have a degree of influence in human action if they want. There's a lot of blurriness around how much influence the Jinn have on humans. Some say that they can possess humans, some say that they can't possess humans, some say they can influence, and then it's up to the human to decide what to do. Some say that they can't do that. So, yeah, I don't know the specifics, but this is what I found. The Kareen are a type of Jinn that constantly accompany humans, and they are one Jinn type of several. I will go into detail on each type of Jinn at the end of this live stream. At least I think it's at the end. Towards the end. There's a bit more after it, but yeah. The word Jinn comes from the Arabic trilateral root janana, which means to hide or conceal. And Amira El-Zine, author of Islam, Arabs and the Intelligent World of the Jinn, suggests that the Jinn were worshipped by pre-Islamic Arabs who associated them with elements of nature. Some researchers suggest they originate in ancient Mesopotamian mythology, where similar entities were worshipped as gods. One such entity, it's important to note here, I have made a note of it later on as well, is Pazuzu, who is most famously known for being a character, I suppose you'd refer to it as, in the film The Exorcist. So when, I believe she's called Reagan, interacts with the Ouija board and becomes possessed, she's possessed by the spirit of Pazuzu. So he's one of these entities, and he is an actual kind of demonic, ancient Mesopotamian demonic god type entity who genuinely is said to exist. But the Exorcist plucked that bit of history and used it in the film. So just so you know for reference what the Jinn are often compared to. Yeah, so some Arab traditions say that they are the original inhabitants of Earth. They once ruled the planet after battling other life known as the Hin, who were made of wind, and the Bin, who were made from water. Again, there's more on them later. The 11th century Persian cosmographer Zachariah al-Qazwini, I don't know how you pronounce these names, I'm so sorry, placed their origin early in God's creation of life before humans, and he described them as imperceptible creatures able to shapeshift. And a chapter of the Quran called the Surah Jinn is dedicated to the Jinn, and throughout the book, readers are reminded that salvation is offered to both humans and Jinn, which I find very interesting, as there's a lot of comparison to demons, etc. Yet in Christianity, demons, as far as I'm aware, aren't offered salvation, they're just left. So the Hin and the Bin may have been ancient tribes that had supernatural powers in one mythological tradition. So it's one speculation that that's who the Hin and the Bin were, which again links back to what I was saying earlier about early civilizations, the pyramids being built, the Jinn predating humans, that kind of thing. It's all very interesting. The Hin are mentioned in pre-Islamic Arabian law, and their existence is accepted by the Alawi Muslims and the Druze community. The Druze also believe in the Bin, and the Bin were once said to live in Yemen. The Druze also refer to the Rim and the Tim. Some suggest all four are the same beings described in the book of Genesis as the Nephilim, who were mysterious giants who existed before humans. And again, that's another interesting point, the fact that across these different religious texts there is some sort of reference to a being that existed before humans, which again is why I say lots of conspiracy theorists would probably jump on this, because there's a lot to speculate over. Some Muslim traditions say that once the Hin and the Bin were defeated, destruction followed until the angels made of pure light were sent to battle the bad Jinn. A similar story to that one was told in the book of Enoch, which describes the battle between angels and demons, and may have been the inspiration for later descriptions of the Jinn by Muslims such as El-Qazwini and Ibn Cathars. Again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing these names right. When the angels won, the bad jinn were cast to remote places such as islands, caves, and forests, and later featured in Arabian tales as haunting spirits in abandoned places, waiting for travellers to torment. Others were said to have built homes in the ruins of civilizations, such as Madain Salah, now in modern-day Saudi Arabia, and Prophet Muhammad was said to have walked quickly through there to avoid the jinn. And also in Iran, not Iran, in Iram, in modern-day Oman. Muslims are encouraged to recite certain prayers for protection when in places the jinn are assumed to live, in case they become annoyed by the human presence. Some jinn were captured and taken as prisoners back to heaven, where they were taught by angels. And one jinn, sometimes unnamed and sometimes known as Azazel, who came to be known as Iblis, or Satan, after his pride made him refuse God's orders to bow to Adam. I know I completely butchered that sentence. Again, this is just notes I've taken, so anything I'd usually kind of reword in an article, I'm having to reword on the spot, and I'm not very good at that. So he's thought to be, so again, references to other names. So sometimes he's known as Azazel, sometimes he's known as Iblis, sometimes he's known as Satan. I think in Christianity, Azazel and Satan and Lucifer are all three separate demonic entities. I don't know much about it from having not researched it yet, but I think that they're all different in Christianity. But here it's saying that they're all kind of the same. But anyway, he's thought to be the leader of the demonic jinn, said to cause fitna, which means troubles, and lead people to their own destruction. Imam Muslim, a 9th century Persian Islamic scholar, has said that Iblis has 5 sons, and the identity of the mother remains unclear. But each son is master in creating specific troubles. So you've got Tyr or Tabor, who causes physical injuries. You've got Sut or Misut, who spreads lies. Zalamber encourages dishonest business transactions. Awa encourages adultery and seduction. And Dasim, it just says Dasim plays the biggest role. I assume the following point is what Dasim does, which is creep into homes to cause problems to the family, especially between husband and wife, and so breaks the family structure. And this breaking of that structure is considered Iblis's greatest victory. They are mostly thought of as malicious spirits. In Islamic tradition, there are also good jinn. They live quietly alongside humans and have family structures, kingdoms, and can be of any faith or none. Now, having mentioned that point, I do want to quickly say that sounds baffling to me. The jinn are of any faith or none, because unlike humans, the jinn have gone to war with angels and have been to heaven and returned, and they've had a lot more interaction than humans have. So I don't know why they'd be of any faith or none. The reason why, at least I think the reason why different faiths exist for humans is because we don't know. And so people have just kind of speculated and put their beliefs together, etc. I'm just going to get rid of that message quickly. There we go. At least that's my own interpretation of why there are different religions. I could be wrong with that. So for the jinn to have different faiths is odd to me, because they surely would know the right faith, as it were. You know, which one is the most correct in their stories and history, etc. Now, it could be argued that, like with humans, maybe it was so long ago that the modern day jinn have forgotten. But they have much longer lifespans than humans. I haven't found information detailing how long of a lifespan, but that's the one thing which has been a bit strange to me while researching these creatures. The thing around them having faith or not having faith, which could be why in Christianity it said that the demonic can't be redeemed, because they have lost faith in God. They know he exists, but to have faith is different from knowing that it exists. Because faith is more like, oh yes, I trust your plan, as opposed to I know you exist. Which, again, is an interesting way of looking at it. So maybe that's what it means by the Jinn can be of any faith. Maybe it just means that some believe in the plan, some don't believe in the plan, as opposed to believing in the entity behind the plan. So I just thought that was an interesting point to talk a little bit about and speculate on. In the Quran, King Solomon, who's known as the Prophet Suleiman in the Muslim world, had the power to control the jinn and was told to keep them occupied to ensure they didn't have time to cause disruption on Earth. And he used their strength and heavy labour skills to build his temple. The jinn played a big part in Bedouin folklore, and poetry was often attributed to jinn-like possession, which I mentioned earlier. Again, it's not quite in order. Some people blame the unseen world for medical conditions such as epilepsy and bipolar disorder, and I feel like sorry for that. It's probably the first time I've sneezed on a live stream. So some people blame the unseen world for medical conditions such as epilepsy and bipolar disorder, and they keep illnesses quiet as a societal stigma associated with supposed jinn possession occurs. So instead they seek help with religious figures to conduct an exorcism. Which again, I touched on that earlier, that they'll be more inclined to go and seek out an exorcist as opposed to a mental health professional. Especially in cases of like schizophrenia or something involving a lot of confusion, you can see how that kind of illness would be attributed to, how possession would be linked with that. So, Sufis and mystics sometimes sought to exorcise the bad jinn using haunting and ecstatic nawa music, and cupping therapy is used by some to clear away the jinn. And sometimes the jinn is referred to as bad energy. Today, with the spread of scientific rationalism, belief in the jinn amongst Muslims is increasingly explained away as allegory for natural phenomena, or mentally set aside as another of God's unfathomable mysteries. Some say the jinn cannot physically possess human beings, and that the worst it can do is plant thoughts in the mind, leaving it to the individual to accept or reject the idea. Some Muslims say that the jinn are metaphorical, and others say that denying the belief in the jinn negates someone's belief in Islam. So they're very much so a serious thing. It's kind of like saying you're a Christian but then saying that heaven and hell don't exist. It's a bit of a contradiction. Because they are referred to as demons. So it would be similar to saying, oh, angels don't exist, demons don't exist, but I'm still Christian kind of thing, And they were introduced to the world at large through the genie in Disney's Aladdin. They're described in pre-Islamic mythology of Arabia as appearing as everything from snakes to scorpions to humans, and Islam was introduced in the 7th century, which again I mentioned earlier. And you can... Okay, so the jinn can fall in love and have sexual encounters with humans, and Arabs of pre-Islam invented a set of exorcism procedures to protect themselves, such as the use of beads, incense, bones, salt, and charms written in Arabic, Hebrew, and Syriac, or hanging a dead animal's teeth, such as a fox or a cat, around their necks to frighten the jinn and keep them away. They are lower in rank than angels, although sometimes, some people have said they are angels, so again, a bit of a contradiction there. It's often believed that they're capable of human possession. Again, another contradiction. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. Attribution of psychiatric symptoms, is put towards the jinn. It's common in some Muslim populations, according to a 2014 study. And sightings possibly the most rampant in Bala, and which is an Oman in Bala in Oman, which is a remote Arabic outpost. And in Islamic tradition, Allah created the angels on a Wednesday, and the jinn came into being on a Thursday. Humans created on the Friday, when all but a few jinn were defeated. This is thousands of years later that the humans were created, by the way. It's not just the next day. Some believe them just to be magical creatures and not associated with the creation story. They're referenced in two different ways, according to Islamic tradition. The first, I've got a hair in my mouth now. There you go. The first is to be the opposite of al-ins, which is something that maintains a shape, which means it's impossible for humans to detect them with their sensory organs, and it also applies to angels and demons. All angels and demons are jinn, but not all jinn are angels and demons. Got another hair in my mouth. The second way is, I don't know, is an invisible entity created from smokeless fire. Similar motivations and needs to humans. They eat, drink, and can give birth. They're subject to a life cycle but live much longer than humans. They're faster and stronger, and the jinn are able to be believers or non-believers and subject to judgment. The jinn can choose to be seen, and Muhammad, the last prophet of Allah, was sent not only to human communities but also to the jinn. Other prophets and messengers were also sent to the jinn. According to Islamic tradition, King Solomon could speak with animals and the jinn, and he had control over rebellious jinn. He made them build the first temple, and they allowed him to learn cures for illnesses that were inflicted on humans by the jinn. The jinn were created from either a mix of fire or smokeless fire. Some believe smokeless fire refers to a type of energy. And the jinn lived for thousands of years before humans were created. The jinn became prideful and thought they were greater than Allah, and the world was then subject to corruption and injustice. And Allah tried sending warnings, but these were all ignored. Humans were made of clay from the earth, and Allah ordered angels and the jinn to bow before Adam. Some debate if Iblis was an angel or a jinn. Angels couldn't be disobedient, so that's what leads to the debate, because he was disobedient. In Christianity, it is believed that Lucifer was originally an angel who then fell from heaven. So that's again another subtle detail there between Islam and Christianity. So certain myths, which I found the kind of the real thing behind the myth, as it were. So apparently jinn do not shapeshift into cats, and they do not enter our realm through mirrors. They resemble, that's basically the only one I think I did with that. But they often, so the jinn resemble ancient Roman spirits, which might be pronounced genie. It's Gen with a double I. They're similar to guardian angels and attendant spirits, and they also often resemble goats, apparently. So, yeah. Okay, just keeping an eye on the time, that's good. So this is the types of jinn now. So, okay, I didn't realize I had an extra page after this. So types of jinn. You've got the Ifrit. So they are a jinn type that frequents ancient ruins. Myths say they protect the pyramids and burial grounds. It's thought that if someone tried opening these areas without the counterspell, then these jinn would come and kill the offender. They live in societies like humans, and they have a royal and social ranking. They prefer marrying other Ifrit, but are known to marry... Not Ifrit, but are known to marry humans and have children with them. They also have the power to grant wishes, but they have free will. They can be believers or non-believers, and they're mostly considered as wicked and malevolent that should be avoided. And I have found something saying that they're physically larger and the most powerful, but this seems to be attributed to the Marid instead. So the Marid is one of the most well-known types and thought to be the most powerful. They are the modern day. So most modern day understandings of genies are based off of these, and they have the ability to shift form. Marid means giants and speaks to their large form. They're known to be able to grant wishes. They're the likely source of the three wishes legend, and obtaining wishes comes at a price. Most often, it requires a great deal of battle to obtain a wish, and it can be made to grant wishes if imprisoned with magic, or if a ritual is performed in their honour. Flattery has been proven to work, and an extraordinary amount of flattery is needed to gain their favour. And they live in seas and oceans as a spirit of water, and they are thought to control the elements. You've got the ghoul, which sometimes is spelled Ghoul, other times is spelled Ghul. And they are some of the most greatly feared jinn due to their shape-shifting ability and tendency to prey on humans. They're especially feared due to their craving for human flesh, and usually they are content to feed on a corpse. But they're also content to devour humans that are still living. It makes them a great threat, and they're thought to frequent graveyards, ruins, places that are generally uninhabited, and they tend to attack people who travel alone or in small groups that can be outnumbered by a ghoul pack. The female ghouls especially are feared due to their ability to appear as a normal, beautiful, mortal woman, and then they convince human men to marry them and then eat them. So kind of like praying mantises, which they could just be way of understanding praying mantises, maybe? I'm not sure. And then you've got the Jinn, who were mentioned earlier. They appear as dogs and other animals, and they're known to be spotted the most often in Arabia, Persia, and India. It's thought there's a possible connection between the Jinn and the strange dogs that would lure foreign soldiers into the desert during World War II and then disappear. Then you've got the Jinn, who are shapeshifters that live in the desert. You'll be able to see it. There's a lot of living in the desert and a lot of shapeshifting. But they are some of the most open-minded and friendly jinn to interact with humans. They're some of the first jinn to interact with humans. They appear in the form of whirlwinds and white camels. So again, it's that element connection because they're some of the earliest to interact with humans. So it possibly links to the Mesopotamian gods. They can be mischievous. They have the ability to hide or reveal their presence or the presence of an oasis, depending on if they like a group of travellers. They're powerful allies, especially as they are enemies of the ghoul. They're known to help humans in their war struggles through history, and if they decide one army is righteous, they'll protect the warriors who fight for the holy cause. If they deem an army unworthy, then they're known to interfere and try to cause trouble. So the Scylla, however you want to pronounce it, which I mentioned earlier, spelled Sila, are shapeshifters, and they are fairly tolerant to humans compared to the other jinn. They're fond of meddling in human affairs, often with attempt to help humans, and they are rarely sighted. The Palace, have many similarities to the vampires of Europe. They live in the desert and drain all the blood from the victims by licking the soles of their feet and sucking the blood out. That was a very weird detail that I did not expect. I don't know why if it's made up, which it in realistic stuff probably is. What makes someone think that's how you get blood? Like, the vampire bite in the neck, that makes sense because blood flows through the neck. You've got main vein here, etc. But licking the soles of the feet to get blood out, that's a bit of a weird one. But yeah, anyway, they have very low intelligence and can be outsmarted if two people sleep end to end with the soles of their feet together or under each other's heads. Which again, more funny details. You know what? There's a TV program called What We Do in the Shadows about vampires. I really want one of them vampires to be in it because it's a comedy series, so that could be done very well. Anyway, the Korean are another type of Jinn, and they are possibly one of the most interesting breeds. As it's thought every person in the world is born with their own Korean, and they're the part of the human that causes them to do bad and sin. It's possible to train and to become a servant, but the process takes many years and can be dangerous. Successful endeavours can be very rewarding. The Prophet Muhammad turned his Korean into a Muslim and did away with his evil nature entirely. And the benefits of training a Korean include obtaining information on anyone in the world. Every human has one, so yours can talk to the other ones and report back. Know how to cure illnesses, find lost and stolen things, influencing other Korean to get the person that Korean belongs to do what you want, and you can be aware of anyone coming to see you before they arrive. Now, the Korean, when I was reading about it, I didn't mention it in the article on the Jinn, which I probably should have done, but it reminds me a lot of the thoughts around the id, ego, and superego. So I believe, if I'm remembering correctly from psychology, the Korean is a good parallel to the id, which is thought to be the part of a human which is kind of your primal instincts. Your ego is the self, and then the superego, I believe, is the person you want to be. So you've got your basic needs, who you are, and then the person you want to be. So it's thought that when there's disorders such as anorexia, for instance, body dysmorphia, things like that, it's thought that those three are out of whack, and so you lean more so one way or the other, and that's why you view yourself differently, and why you can become depressed, etc. around that. I think, again, it's been years since I've learned about the id, ego, and superego. It's a Freudian concept, I believe. But it reminds me a lot of the Korean reminded me of the id, because of the kind of primal instincts side of things. So the Shaitan are thought to be the evil Jinn with no hope for salvation, and they pledge. Just hearing a lot of shouting. They've pledged their service. Apologies if you can hear that. So they've pledged their service to Iblis, who is referred to as the evil one. And there's alternative spelling. So there's kind of Shaitan, so Sheitan. So yes, he is also known as Shaitan, which I'm assuming is where Satan comes from. And again, that's got the different spelling of Shaitan, and is known as pure evil, and so they are known to be the cause of many troubles in the human world. Sometimes they're used and controlled by strong dark magicians, and they have the ability to cause illness and death. They're capable of destruction and can cause a person to lose everything. They also have the ability to possess humans. Another Jinn can also possess humans, but the act is much more malevolent when done by the Shaitan. And then you've got the Vitala, which are often thought as the original vampires, able to possess corpses and prevent them from decaying. It allows them to move freely in the human world and be virtually undetectable. They're extremely intelligent and thought to be natural psychics. It's often said that they have the ability to read thoughts and tell a person's future. I'm going to move that to the side a little bit. There we go. So that was the last type. The Vitala was the last type. So some believe that the Jinn was a classification for a specific group of humans that lived outside of societies of their ancestors. And they hypothesized that they were sinful and unruly people, evil and prideful. Some think that they are a psychological response to loneliness, a way of entertaining and soothing the mind. And in Arabic terminology, it is known as waswas. Again, I don't know if the pronunciation on that is right. But it means mind games and wishful thinking. So waswas is whispering in the mind, and it's often believed that these whisperings are caused by Satan, and that it's thought to result in belief of something being present when nothing is, and the imagination goes on to become a legend, which is then passed down, and that legend is then a powerful suggestion to imaginations, and the stories continue. And it's thought the best way of explaining illness. It also thought they are a way of explaining illness and disease, and that it's early civilization's version of bacteria and viruses and microorganisms, as there are similarities in the way that they affect humans and where they can be found. These little invisible creatures that you can't see but will make you ill. That kind of thing. So Saudi Arabia implemented the death penalty for cases. Oh my God, now I'm hearing banging next door. So Saudi Arabia implemented the death penalty for cases dealing with the jinn to prevent sorcery and witchcraft becoming rampant. To practitioners of Salafism, which is nationally practiced across Saudi Arabia, and the literalists are often called Salafists, summoning the jinn is the same as summoning a demon, and demons are unbelieving jinn. So the root of the word jinn or jinn, so spelled JNN or GNN, means to hide or to be hidden. And genie is synonymous for jinn, comes from Latin genius, which is protected spirit. Each human is thought to have since birth. And they can attach themselves to objects, especially old objects which they can reside in and use to travel. It's believed they could become attached to precious or semi-precious stones such as opals. I don't know if that's Islamic belief about the travelling in objects thing, because it's very much so like the genie in Aladdin, so it might be a more westernized belief. They're most commonly known from tales in Arabian Nights, which is the common name for 1001 Nights. And that's a collection of Middle Eastern folk tales. And it illustrates several kinds of jinn and spirits, first depicted them as wishmasters. So Iblis is from the root basala, which means he who causes despair. And the Quran argues that the devils and evil jinn were created to help sorcerers who were spiritually very far from Allah. And sorcerers can invoke them, force them into obedience via rituals, and send them out to accomplish tasks set by the sorcerer or those paying for the sorcerer's services. In some cases, the jinn can appear as a loved one, and regarding protection, prayers can be said from the Quran, and amulets can be worn as well as talismans blessed by a Muslim scholar, and people also avoid certain places and buildings. The jinn are increasingly popular in Western culture due to The Exorcist and The Mummy. Shaitans are unbelieving jinn. Folklore describes them as ugly creatures, male or female, can assume human form, but their feet always remain as hooves. They eat excrement and use disease as a weapon, and are said to exist on the border between light and darkness. The Syrian and Indian shaitans are described as the strongest in their class. Shaitans functioned as familiars or Greek demons, and provided inspiration for soothsayers and poets. Stories of Solomon say that the shaitans are no more than particularly knowledgeable jinn, and in the Quran they are the devil, and they've also been referred to as hordes commanded by the devil, who is also referred to as shayateen, who is thought to have taught magic and helped humans in exchange for worship. In Arabic, Iblis is called Ash Shaitan. No, it's not that. He's called Ash Shaitan. So yeah, they're also referred to as jinn, jinnies, and jinnies, but with a D in front of the name. They can be. You can trick an evil jinn into re-entering its lamp or jar and sealing it. If not, then plagues could be caused. Jinn's from the word jana, meaning hide or conceal. I found there are 5 types. I've obviously read out many more than just 5 types, but the 5 are Jan, Jinn, Shaitan, Ifrit, and Marid. Solomon's wife, the Queen of Sheba, was believed to be born of marriage between a jinni and a human. And as I said earlier, Pazuzu, an ancient Mesopotamian demon, precursor to the jinn. and they can be repelled by salt and iron, apparently. So, yeah, so that's all the information that I have on the Jinn. And as I say, if you want to read the full article, it is available on the trueparanormal.blogspot.com. This live stream will be uploaded to YouTube as well, just in case you couldn't watch it all or want to watch it all again or something like that. I probably will in the future, going off of my notes. I'll probably try and get some sort of device I can read off to actually narrate the article to you, as opposed to reading random bits and pieces of notes. That way what I'm reading will be more cohesive and chronological, and I won't repeat points, hopefully. And then I can properly elaborate thoughts as well on it. Because, like I say, just speaking like this is not my forte. Unless I have notes to go off. So yeah, so my thoughts on the Jinn, as I said earlier, I do think that, as described there, they're likely just created as an early way of understanding illness and disease and mental illness and things like that. That's probably all there is really to it. I think I've discussed everything else. So yeah, so thank you very much everyone for watching this live stream, and thank you as well for the amount of interaction that I've had with the database over the last month or so. Jamaica Inn has gone up to a good number of views. The Jinn has gone up to a good number of views, and like quite fast as well, like unusually fast. So thank you very much, and thank you for sharing things. It really does help me out. And yeah, like I say, hopefully I'll be able to amend the Jamaica Inn article. So after this live stream, I will see if I've had a response on that to see any specific details over what it is that I've gotten wrong. Because as with any historical-based article, there's bound to be something. So I'm surprised I've not been contacted by anyone regarding any other articles. But this one is a bit baffling because there was very little, like when I think historical inaccuracy, I think names and dates, and I included very little regarding names and dates, and a lot of the sources I used were the Jamaica Inn official sources, so it's going to be interesting to see how much to amend is the history and how much to amend is hauntings, because I suspect it's probably going to be hauntings, but we'll find out. Like I say, I will put a note in the article saying this is what's been amended, this is the differences, just to highlight the accuracies as well as the inaccuracies. So yeah, so thank you very much everyone for watching, and I will be live streaming again next Wednesday, and we'll hopefully be discussing the Fox Sisters on that live stream. So yeah, so thank you very much, and goodbye.